I'm on a journey to get 100 platinum trophies on PlayStation, and I decided to go for a game I consider in my top 10 of all time, Ghost of Tsushima. I heard so much hype around the game, and when I first got my PlayStation, it ended up being one of the first PlayStation exclusives I played, and man, this game exceeded my expectations, and definitely has one of the best stories in gaming in my opinion. I'm definitely glad that I get to make my way back to this game to add to my platinum collection. This game has a total of 52 trophies, and according to the PowerPix website, it should take somewhere between 40 and 60 hours to complete. There are also no missable trophies in this platinum hunt, so thankfully I won't have to worry about that. With all that out of the way, let's jump right into the game and get the hunt started. The beginning of the story takes us to the first Mongolian raid on Japan, where they invade Tsushima Island to gain a foothold to plan their takeover on the rest of Japan. We see this story from the perspective of Jin Sakai, the nephew of Lord Shimura, who is the Jito of Tsushima. If you don't know what a Jito is, they are basically stewards that are appointed by the shogun to oversee the land that they are assigned to. Under the leadership of Lord Shimura, he leads 80 samurai to defend their home with honor, but when you use honor against the brutality of war, then you're going to be left like this guy right here. After the samurai saw what happened to one of their own, the battle begins as we take over as Jin to follow Lord Shimura and charge towards the beach to take out any Mongols we can as we make our way for their leader. But as we were making our way along the beach, the Mongol ships were firing flaming bolts which Jin and his horse got caught under. When Jin is stuck under his horse, he almost gets taken out by one of the Mongols, but is saved by his uncle, and the two lock in and can start clearing out the beach on foot. We continue to make our way through the beach as the game kind of gives us a basic tutorial to the combat, and when we finally find their leader and begin to charge at them, another one of the flaming bolts land in front of Jin and his uncle and knock the two out. Jin wakes up to see his uncle restrained, and when Jin goes to grab his katana, he gets shot in the back by 2 arrows, and shortly after Jin passes out. After that, we see that the Mongol leader goes to Lord Shimura and introduces himself as Khotun Khan, a grandson of Genghis Khan. Khotun also shows respect to Shimura as he said they have been preparing for this day in 2 different ways. Shimura did it by training and strengthening his combat skills, while Khotun was learning about the Japanese people such as their language and their ways. After their talk, we see Khotun knock out Lord Shimura with his own katana, and we go back to Jin where we get to interact with the game again to make sure he's still alive. After that, we see Jin waking up and looks to also have been treated for his wounds from the battle on the beach. We also see that his armor is gone as well. Jin gets up to look around to see his surroundings and see where he's at, and he finds himself in a village that is being pillaged by Mongols. We begin to sneak around the village, and inside one of the buildings, we find our damaged armor, so we go ahead and begin to put on the armor and head outside to see a Mongol showing off his sword to one of the villagers in a very not nice way. But before we did anything about it, we get pushed back into the building by a woman. She was asking Jin about his wounds and if he could still run, which he could if need be. She also said that Jin's sword isn't here, but before she could explain it more, one of the Mongols was about to enter the house, so she told Jin to hide while she dealt with him. When the two were finally able to talk, we learned that the woman's name is Yuna, who is actually a thief before the Mongols invaded, and that if we want our sword, then we would have to follow her. As we were following Yuna, she tells us that while Jin was unconscious, the Mongols took over half of the island during that time. Yuna also learns here that the man she saved was Jin Sakai, the nephew of Lord Shimura. We proceed to sneak around the village until we come upon the house of the person that Yuna traded the sword to, and when we collect the sword, Jin goes into a flashback from when he was young and was training with Lord Shimura, and this serves as a tutorial for us to learn how the combat actually works in the game. Once we get through the flashback, Jin will take what he remembers and use it to fight one of the Mongols that found us inside the building, so we quickly dealt with him before leaving the building and made our way to the stables to take one of their horses. At the stables, we got to choose the name and also what kind of horse we wanted. I ended up going with the black horse and naming it Kage, or Shadow in English, since it seemed fitting. After we choose our horse, Jin and Yuna take off on horseback, and this right here is where we get our first trophy for completing this part of the story. Jin and Yuna make their way to Castle Kaneda, as this is where the Khan and his Mongols have taken over, and also where Shimura is being held prisoner. There, Jin alongside Yuna face the enemies head on, and we make our way up to the upper part of the castle. Yuna takes off to keep the roads clear and get the horses ready, so that when Jin frees Shimura and makes a break for it, they can escape. Jin makes his way to the bridge that connects to the castle that Khan and Shimura were in. After, Jin takes out the Mongols on the bridge, and he calls out to Khotun Khan. Khan walks out out and we begin our duel as Jin tries to avenge the honor of his uncle. The fight doesn't go well though, as whatever Jin tries to do, it wasn't enough as every attack was getting parried. Towards the end of the fight, Khan tries to get Jin to surrender so that he can recruit him and Shimura to help conquer their land, but Jin takes a quick strike at him with his sword, in which the Khan didn't appreciate, so he grabbed Jin and threw him off the bridge. Next we see a flashback of young Jin watching as his injured father pleaded for Jin's help as he was being attacked by bandits, but Jin was scared to help, so he watched his father get killed. We transition to the funeral after, where young Jin followed his father's servant, Yuriko, to where Jin's father was being buried, and right before we approach Jin's dad's burial site, we meet with Lord Shimura, who hands Jin the Sakai sword and tells him that it is his job to carry on his father's legacy. After this flashback, we see Jin on a beach and he sits talking to his sword, which he believes that his father will hear him, and asking his father how Jin can save his uncle. Right then is when we see the wind moving along as if it was guiding Jin onto where to go, and this is basically our navigation system in the game, as they don't have a mini-map or a compass at the top of the screen for you. We follow our way over to the woods where we find Yuna and we talk about what happened, and also that if Khan is expecting a war with the samurai, then we'll have to hit them with a different way, and also gather other allies to help fight back. When we get on our horse and finish out the prologue, we get a few different main story missions, or tales, which is what the game calls them, that surround a few of the main allies we will encounter throughout the story. I went ahead and started with the closest tale, that is with Yuna, in which her main goal early on is to free her brother, who was captured by Mongols because of his blacksmith skills. Yuna says that we have to go in quietly, as if we go on loud, then they will start slaughtering the prisoners. This is where we get introduced to the assassination mechanic in the game, where this will be the other way that Jin will be fighting back, and that's from taking out the Mongols from the shadows. After we performed our first assassination, we go into another flashback of Jin and Lord Shimura, which just has Shimura hating on the exact thing that Jin is doing now in the present. After that flashback, we make our way through the camp and assassinate any Mongolian that we can, and at the end, we don't end up fighting Yuna's brother Taka. We end up fighting another man in a straw hat that we got out of the camp, and at the end, he gives us information about prisoners passing through here before they were moved down to a place called Azamo Bay. This is where we come to the conclusion that Taka is being held there, and Yuna promises us that if we rescue him, that Taka will be able to help us with his blacksmith skills to craft what we need to help with fighting back against the Mongols. After this conversation, we see a different conversation between Koten and Shimura, talking about what Jin had done, and Shimura refuses to believe it. This is to show the start of the descent of Jin away from the samurai path. After the conversation, we get the tale completion and another story trophy here. The next tale I decided to do was to recruit a man called Sensei Ishikawa, who is one of, if not the best archer on the island. We go to his dojo where we see that someone had been attacked here, so we follow the tracks to Ishikawa's house where we find him inside. We found out that he was supposed to go to Komoda Beach with the rest of the samurai, but never made it there because he was attacked by bandits supposedly. Jin also tells him that Shimura is alive and that we need to help him, but he said he can't because his student is missing. Jin offers to help him find his student in hopes to have both of them help Jin save Shimura. Ishikawa agrees to this and we begin our search for his student Tomoe. Jin was surprised to find out from Ishikawa that his student was a peasant girl that Ishikawa took in. The search takes us to a fort where Ishikawa fears that Tomoe was taken and is being held over there. When we first get to the fort, we first do a survey of the place to decide how to attack, and this is where Ishikawa teaches us that there is more than one way of infiltrating a base. After we make our way into the fort and clear out all the enemies, Jin and Ishikawa investigate the place and learn that Tomoe wasn't just a prisoner. She was actually teaching the Mongols all the ways of the bow that she had learned from Ishikawa. At the end of this is where Ishikawa had talked about pushing Tomoe too hard and that it was actually her that attacked Ishikawa and not the bandits like he had said earlier. At the end of this is when Jin said that he will help Ishikawa track down Tomoe, and in return Ishikawa will help Jin free Shimura. The last of these three main tales that I went ahead and did next was to go to the Adachi estate to recruit Lady Masako to help us with our cause. When we arrive to the estate though, we find that the place is empty, but while we were about to head inside, we got attacked by some bandits that were already there, so we had to defeat them. After we defeated the bandits, we found a set of footprints and decided to track the prints until we found a dead horse that had multiple arrows struck in it. While we were looking at the horse, Jin almost got hit by an arrow that turned out to be from Lady Masako. The two have a conversation and we learned that the clan Adachi had been wiped out by their their own people. This leads us to our main objective, which is to hunt for the people that had a role to play in the clan massacre. This leads us to the Golden Temple area, which has become a safe haven for the locals on the island. We get a little tutorial about armor upgrades before we move on with the quest and get the info we needed. We met with a man named Sojin, who was a bit dismissive of our questions, so we ended up tailing him without him noticing. We followed Sojin to an inn where the rest of what was left of the assassins were hiding out at. We ended up taking out all of the assassins before questioning Sojin again, and when the conversation was over, Lady Masako killed Sojin. While Jin was investigating the inn, he found out that they had been receiving supplies and letters from someone with a clan symbol that was not familiar to the two. This is where Jin and Lady Masako agree to help each other with their goals, and we were able to recruit Lady Masako to the cause. With Yuna, Sensei Ishikawa and Lady Masako recruited, had a few more people to gather before Jin was able to go rescue his uncle. The next person, or should I say people, that I went to go recruit were the Straw Hat Ronin. In our search for the Ronin, Jin stumbles upon a group of dead Mongols alongside a burning wagon, and while he follows the trail from the area, he gets ambushed by a Mongol, but the Mongol is stopped by one of the Ronin who showed up. This specific Ronin turned out to be Ryuzo, an old acquaintance of Jin, and who is now the leader of the Ronin. Jin tries to recruit Ryuzo and his group, but Ryuzo doesn't want to risk his Ronin for just one man, so Jin offers that Shimura will give Ryuzo whatever he wants. Ryuzo answers that he and his men would be interested in an offer like that, but before the conversation could continue, the two were attacked by more Mongols. After the fight, Ryuzo still expresses his hesitation about helping freeing Shimura, as the Ronin are fighting starvation right now from not having enough food. As he and Jin head back to the Ronin camp, along the way, they learned from a peasant that they helped out that the Mongols have been taking the locals' foods and other equipment to a fort nearby. Jin suggests that he will help Ryuzo and the Ronin invade the fort to get the food for the Ronin in exchange for accepting the offer that Jin made to Ryuzo earlier. In a strategic plan, we go ahead and attack and take over the fort, though at the end of it, we do not find any food but only papers from a dead Mongol officer. We find out that this fort was only to temporarily hold the food before it was moved offshore via the beach nearby, which luckily the boats were still there. We launch another attack shortly after to surprise the Mongols as Jin and Ryuzo sneak onto a small boat and sail over to the main ships, and there the two take out all the Mongols on the ship. Jin and Ryuzo didn't find any food before another ship with Mongol archers shot flaming arrows at the ship the two were on, so they had to jump and swim to shore. At the end, they didn't find any food, but Jin found Mongol battle plans, which has a map of the supply lines. Jin handed the plans over and Ryuzo committed to help him at Castle Kaneda. This ends the tale and we get another story trophy here. The final step I needed to do before attacking Castle Kaneda was to free Yuna's brother Taka. We first had to meet Yuna with her friend Kenji at Kenji's house near Azamo Bay. Kenji would deliver sake to the Mongols in the bay and we would sneak into the base in the car that Kenji uses. The plan worked as we made our way through the place and we were able to find Taka, and shortly after we were able to successfully escape. After we made it out of Azamo Bay, we had to run to the crossroads nearby as that is where Kenji would be with our horses, so that we can ride out to the next place we needed to get to for our next mission. At the end of this tale, I also got another trophy for freeing Taka. After we freed Taka, Yuna and Taka headed to this town where the main forge was, called Komatsu Forge. When Jin arrives, he sees that Yuna is fighting off some Mongols while Taka and whatever villagers remained in the town were hiding out inside the forge. After we took care of the Mongols, Jin cashed in the favor that Yuna promised. This is for Taka to forge a tool that can help Jin go up the walls of Castle Kaneda. For Taka to craft this tool, we had to free Taka's assistant Yukio, who was being held with some other hostages nearby, so we had to do this quietly so that none of the other hostages would be killed. After we freed Yukio and the other hostages, we hurried back to the forge. When we returned to the forge though, at the end of this we get ambushed by more Mongols at the forge, so Yuna and Jin had to do one last stand to defeat the Mongols, and when we were successful, the rest of the villagers came out, and this is when Yuna decides to start spinning a new legend about Jin, where he begins to gain some new fame and the tale of the ghost begins. With the events of the forge finished, Jin receives the new tool, which turns out to be a grappling hook, which was perfect timing because shortly after, we meet up with Ryuzo, who is asking for Jin for help to free some of the Ronin who were captured after trying to attack the Mongols that had food at one of the spots from the map earlier, and are being held prisoner at Fort Yatate. We go ahead and follow Ryuzo to the fort, and this fort gives Jin the opportunity to use his new grappling hook tool as we scale and swing around the fort and free the prisoners. After we freed the Ronin, we launched a big attack from the inside and the outside, and we were able to clear out the fort. After clearing out the fort and we talk with Ryuzo, Ryuzo tells Jin that his men weren't really treated as prisoners and that they were properly fed, and that he doesn't know why they would do that. But Jin just tells Ryuzo that this was for something in return. This is where the conversation and the mission ends. With our new allies and our grappling hook, it was finally time to attack Castle Kaneda and free Lord Shimura. We waited until nighttime to attack. Everyone was there except for Ryuzo and the Ronin. Jin waited long enough before he decided to move on with the attack. Jin will have to go ghost mode again as we sneak into the castle without raising any alarms. While inside, we had to take out the alarms and then open the gate for all of Jin's allies to get inside, and we would then have to fight our way up to the castle building. Once we make it through the upper courtyard and are just outside the castle, Jin finds Ryuzo, who betrayed Jin for the bounty that was put on Jin's head. Ryuzo caved in to the betrayal to feed his men so that this would put Jin and Ryuzo into a duel. This would turn out to be our first boss fight, which these can be pretty fun with the exception of one that I will be talking about later. But in the end, Jin would end up winning the duel, but Jin didn't want to kill Ryuzo and tried to persuade him to forget the bounty and help him take back their homeland. But Ryuzo refused and signaled the rest of the Mongols of Jin's location and ran off. Also, at some point in this duel, I got our first combat trophy for successfully staggering 50 enemies. Shortly after, we quickly killed the Mongols that were in our way as we were heading up towards the tower, and all the ones inside the castle too, before we ended up freeing Lord Shimura. With Jin's uncle freed, we gathered with the rest of the allies to defeat the remaining Mongols. That was pretty much everything for the tale, and at the end, we get another story trophy for freeing Shimura. This moves on to the second act of the story, and the next cutscene we see is of Khan and the Mongols alongside Ryuzo, who is still alive, as they moved north, and they ended up taking over Shimura's castle and killing the remaining servants of Shimura there. After the scene, Jin and Yuna meet up with Shimura, as Jin promised Yuna safe travel for Yuna and Taka off of Tsushima and to the mainland, but Shimura said he will do it once Shimura's castle is retaken, but Yuna wasn't happy about that. With the conversations finished, the group decides to move north and plan to liberate Akashima Lighthouse, as that will be the new base for the group as they work on the center region of the island. Once we cleared out all of the Mongols and established the lighthouse, Jin got his plans that will set up the attack on Castle Shimura, and his plans were to contact the shogun for samurai reinforcements, recruit the people from Yarikawa, which will be difficult due to the history there, and also Jin needs to return to his family estate and reclaim his family armor. Also, at the end of this tale, we meet another ally that joins the cause, and his name is Norio, who is a warrior monk. He will come up later for some other trophies, and also he has a somewhat bigger role towards the end of the game. The first one I decided to take care of was to get in contact with the shogun for reinforcements, which had me go into a place called Umugi Cove, and when I first made it to the cove, the game gives me a trophy here. In Umugi Cove, Jin had to meet with Lord Shimura's pirate contact Goro, who was going to take the message from Shimura past the Mongol fleet that is in the bay, but for us to do that, we would have to use a siege weapon that the Mongols had control of called a hwacha, and destroy the Mongol ships with them before they could get to Goro so that he can sail out safely. After we got Goro and the message out, I decided to move on ahead and recruit the people of Yarikawa. This wasn't going to be an easy task either, as Yarikawa people hold hatred towards Lord Shimura from the rebellion against Shimura in the past. Jin, alongside Yuna and Taka, who have grown up there and they know the people, would have to sneak into the stronghold there as the Mongol forces had it surrounded, trying to capture the stronghold for themselves. We also had to prove to the steward of the Yarikawa people by helping them with some Mongols and a bear that were in the ruins of their village, and then at the end we had to help defend the stronghold from the Mongols. Jin helps lead the defense as the Ghost, and during this time time, Jin unlocks a new mode which unlocks the full potential of the ghost by putting fear into his enemies, and this happened when Jin slaughtered the Mongols leader in front of his soldiers. This mode will come up later for an achievement, but with the ghost making an appearance and the Yarikawa people succeeding in fending off the Mongols, the Yarikawa people agree to attack Castle Shimura to help take back their land. Wrapping this part up of Jin's plans, we end up getting a trophy here for recruiting the people. I quickly moved on after to Omi village, as that is where Jin's family estate was. Jin finds at his estate that his family armor is gone, and while looking at the armor stand, he was almost attacked by his house servant Yuriko. Yuriko tells Jin that another servant, Taichi, survived and that they had hid the Sakai armor to keep it safe from bandits and the Mongol soldiers. So Yuriko guides us to Taichi, who is by the family cemetery. After we meet with Taichi, the two go get the armor while Jin pays a visit to his father's grave. After the visit, Yuriko and Taichi placed the armor back in the house, so we went and retrieved it. After grabbing the armor, Jin had to defend his home from some more Ronin that showed up. Once Jin defeated the Ronin, he asked Yuriko to show him how to develop a poison strong enough to kill a man, as she used to make the poison for the vermin that were around the house. And so the two go around tracking down the ingredients that she needed to make the poison, and at the end, we turn them into darts that we can shoot with our new blow dart tool to now silently kill Mongols. After unlocking the blow darts and the poison, we finish up the mission and unlock another story trophy. Now with the Sakai armor collected, this finishes up the main 3 tasks we needed to do before we start our attack on Castle Shimura. We met with Lord Shimura and all our allies at Shimura's camp that he had established. Before we start the attack though, Shimura found out that Ryuzo and the force of the Mongols and Ronin that he is leading are at Fort Koyasan. Jin realizes that this is his chance to finish the job with Ryuzo, so he goes to ask Yuna for help, but she refuses as she said that she is done with the war and she is ready to leave the island, but Taka is wanting to help. Jin refuses Taka's help and tells him to stay with his sister, so Jin sets out on his own to sneak into the fort. When we were observing the fort, Taka doesn't listen to Jin and shows up to help anyways, which Jin reluctantly agrees to. The plan was for Taka to go on horseback and distract the guards at the front gate, and this will allow Jin the window to sneak into the front, and with all these Mongols left, the front gate was left open like this. They really need to do some extra training on how to not leave open an entry point unguarded, because this is horrible on their part. But Jin was able to sneak in and make his way to the courtyard where he finds Ryuzo standing out in the open as if he was waiting for Jin, which he was, because Ryuzo wanted to make sure that Jin knew where to find him and lure Jin so that he would be captured. When Jin wakes up, he finds himself restrained to a pole, and in front of him is Taka, as he had been captured as well. Khotun Khan walks to the two to begin their conversation and to try to convince Jin to sway his people over again, but Jin will never agree to that. Next, the Khan releases Taka from his restraints and says that Taka will be spared if he kills Jin, but Taka takes that sword and he tries to attack the Khan, which doesn't end well, as the Khan knocks Taka to the ground and kills him. With Taka dead and the Khan gone, Jin was able to free himself and gather his gear. The Ronin saw that Jin was free and they all decided to attack Jin, which we were able to take care of quickly, as Jin was fighting to avenge Taka now. Once we were heading for the inner courtyard exit, we found Yuna, who broke in to find Taka, but we had to break the news to her about what had happened to her brother. As Yuna found out what happened, more Ronin were on their way, but Yuna didn't want to leave Taka's body there, so Jin and Yuna both stood their ground and took out the rest of the Ronin that were there at the fort. Next, we see Jin and Yuna at the spot where they had buried Taka and marked it with the headband that Taka would wear. Jin would leave Yuna here to give her time to mourn for her brother, and this would be the end of the tale. And also at the end of this, we get another story trophy. Next up in the main story, we regroup with everyone at Shimura's camp as we will actually attack the castle now. We went to the lookout overseeing the castle with Shimura. Jin and Shimura talked about how Jin dealt with basically what was left of the Straw Hat Ronin except for Ryuzo, who escaped with the Khan. Shimura also told Jin about his plan to adopt Jin and that the Shogun supported his decision too. Shimura said that when the Mongol are dealt with, then Jin will be the heir to the clan Shimura. After, we finally begin the attack attack by riding to the castle and attack them head on at the front gate. We fought and made it all the way to one of the gates that was closed, and so Jin had to climb over to start attacking some more Mongols. But before Jin got down from the gate, he saw that one of the Mongol commanders was in front of his army, so Jin used his new poison darts to poison some of the soldiers behind him, which got the commander to turn around. And when Jin hopped down from the top of the gate, ready to slaughter the captain, this is when Shimura and the rest of the allies opened up the gate and saw that Jin ended up beheading the commander. Shimura begins to scold Jin, but was interrupted by the Mongols firing their Hwacha down on them. Jin is tasked with going to destroy the weapon, but Yuna, who follows Jin, convinces him to use the weapon to get our soldiers up safely. And then after, we follow them to the bridge to wipe out the rest of the Mongols. When we got to the bridge, we saw that the Mongols had retreated to the other side and closed the gate, which was unusual for them, but the samurai were then surprised by Mongols sending a pack of horses, which they had explosive barrels lit on the carts that they were hauling. And so we had to shoot the barrels to explode the bridge just so that we could save some of our people. Afterwards, Shimura wanted to gather the troops to rebuild the bridge and then attack again, but Jin disagreed as they would have lost too many people already and that there is another way to wipe them out. The two take their conversation inside where they continued arguing, where it ended in Shimura smacking Jin, and that was when Jin decided that he was going to work with Yuna to find a way to attack the Mongols before sunrise. And we weren't the only ones that felt that way, as all of the main allies that Jin recruited expressed their support of our plan too. When Jin was talking with Yuna, they saw a place for Jin to climb up around and sneak into the castle. Jin also tasked Yuna to gather some more of the wolfsbane, which is used to make the poison. And so Yuna gathered some allies to get the wolfsbane before nighttime, which is when Jin and them planned the attack. Before we ended the talk though, Yuna gives us something that Taka was working on before he passed away, and that was a set of armor to embody the look of the ghost. At night, when Jin got into his new armor, Yuna gave Jin all the wolfsbane she could find, and then Jin set off to go through with the plan. We worked our way around our castle and to the center where the Mongol army is set up, and we ended up putting the wolfsbane into the Mongol drinks. After we planted the poison, all that we could do was wait and watch the poison do its job. The Mongols took their toast and all drank together and shortly after died to the poison. Jin then makes his way into the castle to confront the Khan, but he only finds Ryuzo there, who the Khan told to stay and collect the ghost's head as the Khan rode north. Ryuzo tried to convince Jin to let him back over as he lost everything when we wiped out the rest of the Straw Hats. Jin refuses and the two end up in a duel to settle things once and for all. We end up in another boss fight in which we win, and when Ryuzo falls to his knees, Jin finishes the job by killing Ryuzo and then walks out of the castle. But when we got outside, we saw that Shimura and the rest of the samurai had made their way over to the castle and they had seen what Jin has done. Shimura tries to convince Jin to blame Yuna for what we have done, as it is considered a crime against the shogun, and also because Shimura still wants to adopt Jin, but Jin won't listen to Shimura and he will embrace his new role as the ghost. Jin then hands over his katana over to Yuna and tells her to ride north and find the Khan. Yuna reluctantly agrees and leaves Jin to turn himself over as he was willing to be arrested. This is the end of the mission and also Act 2 of the story, so we get another story trophy here. To begin Act 3, we start off with Jin in his cell inside the castle, and we see Kenji show up talking to the guard in front of our cell. Kenji successfully distracts the guard and got him to leave, and then this is when Kenji unlocks the cell for Jin and tells him that Yuna has his gear up in the north, and also that the rest of the allies that Jin recruited himself have left and regrouped with Yuna. After that, Jin has to sneak out of the castle and make his way to the stables, and luckily they still have Jin's horse there. The only problem now is that when Jin got to his horse, all of the samurai have found out that Jin has escaped and went after him. When Jin was about to leave on his horse, archers were able to fire some arrows into Jin's horse before they were able to escape. We made our way to Kin, as that is where Yuna was supposed to meet up with us, but along the way though, Jin's horse finally gave in and couldn't carry on any longer as he had passed away. He ends up giving his horse a proper burial and then having to move on. When we made it to Kin, we see that the Mongols had burned everything down and we had to sneak our way around to the giant tree that is in the center of the village, but all we see inside the tree is villagers that they had rounded up and killed. Later along the road, while still searching, we found some more dead villagers and we found out that the Mongols had found out a way to recreate Jin's poison and that they used it to raid Keen. After learning about the poison, the Mongols had spotted Jin, and when we tried to make an escape for it, he was shot with the poison arrow from the archers and shortly after had passed out, but we can faintly hear Yuna as she makes it to Jin when he passes out. When Jin wakes up, he's with Yuna, who is helping him recover, and the two talk about how the Mongols got the poison and their next plan, which is to kill Khotun Khan. Yuna tells Jin that the Khan took most of his forces left and set up a stronghold in Port Izumi. After Jin gathers his things that Yuna had, the two go on to retake Jokaku Temple from the Mongols, as that is close enough to Port Izumi to set up a new base and a safe haven for any survivors. While I was taking back the temple, I got a trophy for shooting a terrified enemy in the back as he was running away from Jin. I also got another trophy for killing 20 enemies while in the ghost dance, and this is the combat trophy I was talking about earlier when we had first unlocked the mode. After retaking the temple, Jin and Yuna move on to go and scout the port to find the best points of attack. While surveying the place, Jin said it was best to try to get Shimura and his army to join the attack to finally get rid of the Khan, which brings us into our next story mission. After they finished surveying the port, Jin set off with a message for Shimura to try and recruit him. We also got a new horse here, which we got to choose between the remaining options that we had from the beginning of the game. I ended up choosing the white horse and naming him Sora. Now, with trying to get the message to Lord Shimura, we couldn't just go back and act like everything was all good. We had to sneak into the castle and leave the message in Shimura's room for him to read, and hopefully he'll join Jin and the rest of our group in our attack. Also, during these two missions, I got some more trophies, so I'll just list them off here before I get to the Port Izumi battle. The first one was for learning all 4 fighting stances, as I got the last one called the Moon Stance here. The next one was for defeating 20 enemies with a counterattack after a perfect parry. And also at the end of the survey mission, when we were trying to get the rest of the allies to Jokaku Temple, that was basically the end of the survey mission, so I got a story trophy here. And also at the start of sneaking in to survey, I got a trophy for killing an enemy by sending him off a cliff, which took me a minute because this guy would not go off the cliff for some reason. With the message delivered, all that was left was to start the attack on the port. Since Shimura and the samurai never showed up to help the attack, the plan was to launch a surprise attack during a giant snowstorm by collecting Hwacha turrets and destroying the Mongol fleets while Jin and the rest of the main allies spy through the port towards the main gate. And while our guys are distracting them, Jin will go ahead and sneak around the side and make his way over to the Khan's building where he was at. And when we arrive at the building, we find that the Khan is out front waiting for us. And after some dialogue, we begin the duel to settle all things once and for all. Now, this would be the hardest boss battle in the game, in my opinion, if it weren't for another one later on. But I'll talk about it here soon. But this guy's attacks were pretty lethal, and after about 10 to 12 tries it took me, even on my I think this would be my 4th or 5th playthrough, I finally beat him. But right before Jin was about to deliver the killing blow, the Khan threw some of the poison powder in Jin's face, and some Mongols with shields took his place as the Khan retreated back to the boat. And I don't know if you would call this a boss fight here, but I'm going to call it one anyways. But when you get on the boat, this is probably one of the most absurd fights I have ever encountered, mainly because of how many enemies there are, and also with the archers that are shooting fire arrows from above that you have to deal with as well. But yeah, even while fighting the Khan too, it was just an insane fight that honestly, I appreciate the difficulty, but it's still the most difficult one in my opinion. This one was weird though, because usually when I play through this game, this would be the hardest part for me and I would struggle the most, but I actually ended up clearing out this part faster than the first boss fight with the Khan before he made it to the boat. And I remember even on my first playthrough till this day that this part right here took me 2 hours of attempts to get through. But when you get past this section, you get a dramatic finish where Jin takes the Khan's head off his body, and with how crazy the fire has gotten, Jin ends up having to jump off the boat into the water. Next, we shortly see Yuna picking up Jin's mask and also finding Jin walking up to the shore to her, and the two retreat to Jokaku Temple. At the end of this tale, I got a story trophy. When the two get to Jokaku Temple, Yuna tells Jin that his uncle has sent a message to meet him at the place where Jin and Shimura spent a lot of time before, and that was at Omi Lake, where the two used to spar. When we get to Omi Lake and meet with Shimura, he tells Jin that the shogun has disbanded his family clan and that he's no longer considered a samurai. Jin says he has no regrets though, as he said he would do this again. Shimura says that new samurai will occupy the Sakai land and estate, so Jin and Shimura ride to the house and to Jin's father's grave to say one last goodbye. Although when they get to the grave, Shimura says that Jin has been branded a traitor and that Shimura was tasked to taking Jin's head so that Shimura can start a new family in line for the Shimura clan. The two reminisce some more before starting their duel, and obviously Jin's going to win here, and in the end we were given a choice to either kill Shimura or spare him. And as much as I want to kill the guy and he gets on my nerves as the story was progressing, I chose to spare him and let this fool live with the shame of what he almost did and that he got his ass whooped. At the end, Jin puts on the ghost mask and walks away, and this is where the main story concludes and we get our final main story trophy. Now, with the main story done, I had about 32-ish trophies to collect left before I got the platinum trophy, so it was time to get started on the trophy cleanup. The first one I screwed up because I thought I was already recording, but I got this shot right here, at least after I hit the record button, and the trophy was for acquiring all of the ghost weapon techniques, which I thought I already had, but this final tree over here had the firecracker that you could use to distract enemies, and that was the one I was missing. But once I got that unlocked, I finally got the trophy. Later on, I went back to one of the temples, and there waiting for me was gifts from survivors that they would give the ghosts for either completing their side quests or just helping them out around the island, and you would get the trophy when you collected 10 of these gifts. The next two I got together, and that was while I was working on Lady Masako's storyline of finding out who was really behind her clan's massacre, and it turned out to be her strange sister, as Masako's sister wanted the life that Masako had. In the end, I got the trophy for completing her storyline, and the second one was for acquiring 30 pieces of vanity, which is like basically cosmetics, and that popped at the same time when I got the mask for completing Masako's questline. Moving on and continuing with our allies' stories, these are basically what I've done for the next few play sessions. I took care of Ishikawa's story of finding his student who started working for the Mongols and training them with a bow. Turns out that Ishikawa had tried to kill a student after she was teaching a group of bandits all the stuff that she had learned, and the whole thing was a cat and mouse chase that ended with Ishikawa showing mercy and allowing her to escape the island as she decided she was done using the bow and wanted a different life. At the end of the story, popped the trophy. Next one I took care of was Norio, the warrior monk's tales, but I honestly wasn't interested in these ones as the rest of the allies, but it had something to do with vengeance for his brother and his battle for it, and yeah, here's the trophy. The last one I did was for Yuna, who went for revenge for her and Taka that were kidnapped and enslaved, so they went after and slaughtered anyone that had anything to do with that so that Yuna can get over her survivor's guilt. We did all that to get the trophy to pop. This is the end of the trophies for the allies storylines. Shortly after this, I had finally enough materials to upgrade the Sakai family armor all the way up, and this lets me have the ability to use the standoff mechanic to the fullest capability by being able to kill 5 enemies while in that mode, and you get the trophy to pop when you do your first standoff of killing all 5 enemies. After that, I found one of these pillars of honor, and they contain sword kits to update the look of your swords, and when you collect your first sword kit, you get the trophy here. The next bit was a lengthy grind, as this contains 7 trophies, and I wanted to do this part mainly right here because this would open up the entire map once I cleared everything. And for these trophies, I had to start liberating all of the Tsushima island. But on the island, there were 3 regions: Izuhara, Toyotama, and Kamiagata. Each region contained 2 trophies with it too. You get 1 trophy for liberating about half of each region, and the second one would pop up when you liberated the entire region, and the 7th trophy would just pop up when you liberated the entire island as well. And during this time, I also got a collectible trophy for collecting 20 Mongol artifacts, and another one for collecting 20 Mongol records. I'm glad you don't have to collect all of these and it's just partial. For the next trophy, I had to go around and find these hidden altars and bow to them to get a unique reaction, and when you bow to 10 of these hidden altars is when the trophy would pop. Now, with the entire island liberated and the map opened up, this made it easier for me to clear out the side tails, and also for any collectibles I still had to go for as well. The next goal I had to set out for myself was to clear out all the mythic tales, which were these quests that surrounded like folk legends on the island, and you just had to discover the truth behind them for some unique abilities or gear. And when you cleared out all of them is when the trophy would pop. Next, I visited these black and white dye merchants that had some unique cosmetics, and when you buy an item from them, it comes with a trophy. Around this point, I finally had enough materials to fully upgrade my sword to get this trophy here. And while I was exploring, I finally unlocked the 6th slot to equip 6 charms, and to briefly explain these charms, they're kind of like stat boosts. And while I was working on clearing out the rest of these side tales, some of these included the last duels I needed to get the trophy for all duels completed. Next one to pop was when I maxed out my legend level to the title of Ghost of Tsushima. This next trophy was an activity trophy, I think that's what you would categorize it, but it was for going to each of these lighthouses on the island and rekindling the fire at the top. Finally, at this point, I was able to get all of the side tales completed in this game for the gold trophy here. These next 2 trophies I was kind of doing in between the side tales, but I was able to get them done shortly after the side tales, and that was to find all the Shinto shrines for the first one. And the second one was for completing all of the Hot Springs, Haiku, Inari shrines, and Bamboo Strike activities on the map. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier, but I also forgot about the photo mode in this game, so I quickly customized the scene in the photo mode for the trophy. This one, I had to go around looking for specific cosmetics to dress up as, I think it's Sly Cooper, which I didn't know they made these games, but I haven't played them either, so I wouldn't have known anyways. But the trophy popped when I completed the ensemble. For the last trophy, I saved till the end of our journey, and I decided to go back to Taka's grave, and if you played a certain song with the flute, you earn a trophy right here, which seemed like a perfect ending to the ride. And there it is, the Living Legend trophy. I'm so glad I went back to platinum this game and added this one to the collection. I don't think I didn't do too bad either, as I was able to knock this out in 46 hours. But yeah, everything I said about this game, I said it at the beginning. I've already played this game before. One of my top 10s. I love it that much. And yeah, thank you all for watching the video. And if you guys want to keep seeing more of this, then go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll try to get these out faster than how long it took me to get this video out. Hope you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys on the next journey.